Hi, listeners. This is Chad Madden with the Grow Your Practice podcast. This is our third installment of our stories from in the trenches of private practice. And in this one, I want to go over a very common concept, which is transitioning, how to transition from working in your business to working on your business. And this comes from the well known Michael Gerber's E Myth. And then there's several spin-offs of that. There's an E-Myth for, I believe, healthcare professionals or healthcare entrepreneurs. But the idea is that most of us who want to grow and scale a practice, want to leave a bigger impact in the community, want to build a practice of value over our 20, 30, 40-year private practice career, that eventually we have to transition in order to scale because there's only so many patients that we can see in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year. And eventually, we have to bring other clinicians on board. We have to team build. We have to work on our business. And that is the emphasis of that. The E Myth, by the way, that concept has been written about in literally hundreds of other business books. It is not a new concept. Most of us as clinicians, the way that we're wired is we get caught in self employed mentality, and that's okay. But there is a way to escape that. There is a way to transition through it. And I want to go through and share my personal story with you. So, as you may know already, if you're a listener of this podcast, when I first opened up, my business plan was for 5 new patients a week and roughly 50 to 60 visits per week. And the reason that I opened up and went into private practice is my wife was 6 months pregnant with our oldest son, our oldest of 6 children. And what I wanted to do is I had a lot of pressure on myself, and we did this together. But to that we wanted to replace her income so that she had the option to return to work or not, because we knew that we wanted to have a lot of children. So I wrote a business plan, had this in place, 5 new patients a week. I was in 2,000 square feet. And, the thought was if I could hire 2 or 3 clinicians over time and had a successful practice, that size practice would be successful. So fast forward, maybe a year or two in, I was treating literally 7 a.m. to sometimes 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. Sometimes on a Friday, I would get out early, like 6 o'clock, something like that. I would treat on Saturdays 8 to 3:30, and then on Sunday evening after dinner, I would go into the office and do basically administrative and the limited marketing of what I knew how to do at the time. It was pretty elementary. And so if my math is right, that's 70 to 80 hours a week. And we were seeing at that time 100 to 120 visits a week. It was myself plus a staff of 3 others. So there were 4 of us total, 2 front desk, reception, billing type positions, and 1 PTA. And I was the PT. And so was running that. Our business plan was successful. We had basically doubled. And, the one thing that I will give Stephanie much credit for is she pulled me aside, and she did this in the right way. And she said, "Hey, by the way, I just want to tell you, like for you to exceed the business plan this much, this early is amazing. And, I'm very happy that now, Jackson is 1 year old at the time, and our oldest son, and we were talking about, and she might have even been pregnant with our second son at the time. Um, who knows? But when we had this conversation, she said, essentially, the money is great, and I'm thankful. However, you're working a lot. And so at this time, I am in my late 20s, and I was not healthy. I had gained weight. I wasn't exercising, wasn't really eating the best, probably wasn't sleeping great. So lots of sacrifice to make this happen. To build the practice in the beginning was very much hustling in business, but neglecting a lot. Not only my personal health, but also the health of my family. And she said, uh, I don't want you to, our kids to grow up and not know who you are. And I can remember, going home and we had this little two-bedroom condo, and basically, um, some nights I would get 15, 30 minutes with Jack, and it was pretty much his bedtime routine, and I'm tucking him in, and that's all I would see him on that day. And she said, that this just you just can't do this forever. So you've got to figure it out. And yeah, it was a little tough to stomach at the time, but yeah, luckily she delivered it again from a great place. Had the acknowledgement in there. What wasn't really being overly critical of me, and I was like, well, let's what can we do here? And I said, what's the most important thing to you? And she said, I want you home for dinner. And she said, that's just really important. I think as a family is that we eat dinner together at night. And I said, okay, great. So, it wasn't perfect. And what I want you to pay attention to here is the transition, the stepwise progression that took years to implement. And I didn't go from working 70 to 80 hours a week down to, I mean, essentially today I'm working 1 to 3 hours a week in the private practice. We have 80 to 90 employees right now. We're at an 8 million plus a year revenue run rate, et cetera. But it that didn't happen overnight, right? It took years to get there. So the first thing that we did after that conversation with Steph, and we talked about the importance of the dinners, is we said, okay, no Saturdays, so eliminated going to work on the weekends, and especially to see patients. And so we condensed the schedule down to 40 to 45-hour treatment week. And it was basically 7 to 7, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then I would see patients like 7 to noon or 7 to 1 on Tuesday and Friday. So that at least gave me 2 nights during the week that I was home for dinner at a decent time. And the other 3 nights that I was working until 7, I was home a little bit earlier, at least an hour earlier than what I was before. The other thing that I wanted to say there is there was a bad reflex, right? And it was this desperation of trying to get patients in and everything else. And what we noticed is that if I just put up boundaries with the front desk, they caught on very quick within a few weeks. We just said, listen, we're not going to schedule outside of this. I'm not going to come in on a Saturday when somebody calls, Friday afternoon, and we're not going to do that anymore. So I know that's a little controversial, and maybe you decide to do that. But what I found is that putting up those boundaries, it allowed me the space to start thinking about the growth of the business. So we got it from 70 to 80 hours a week down to 40 to 45 hours a week. And then what it gave me on Tuesday and Friday afternoon when I wasn't treating is time to focus on planning, focus on marketing, focus on hiring, building personnel, building teams, etc. In 2006, so 3 years after opening, hired 3 PTs in about 4 weeks, and I had never hired a PT before for the private practice. At that time, what that allowed me to do was go from treating 40 hours a week and take a step back to 22 hours a week. So I basically bought myself 6 hours on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday because one of the other therapists we shared a schedule, but she would treat from 9 to 3, and I would treat from 7 to 9, and then 3 to 7 in the evening. And what I did during that time was marketing, planning, focusing on looking at metrics, looking what was going on in our business. And the thing, looking back, I didn't realize it at the time. I thought I was doing very important work, but I had no economy of movement. As a business owner, I really didn't understand what I understand today, right? And so the thing that I want to share in the takeaways, which I'll get into here in a little bit, is you're going to have to give yourself some grace during that time. So if you're a toddler, essentially, figuratively speaking, in terms of a business owner, and you're expecting that the second that you go from a 45-hour treatment week and you back it down to 25 hours or similarly, and now you have 20 hours a week to work on your business, that you know exactly what to do, you're extremely efficient, and you're making big decisions. I'm here to tell you that's not likely going to be the case unless you have some exception. You grew up in a business family, you were just hardwired for business and growth and scaling, etc. Usually not the case. For most of us that are wired as clinicians, it's going to take a while to learn that new skill set, right? You're not going to expect a 2-year old to be running as efficiently as an 18-year-old, right? And it's the same exact thing here. So yeah, so you're going to have some issues with economy of movement as you're going through the process. So that was 2006. 2 years later, had completely replaced myself within the clinic. Was out of treatment, although not for long. And the thing that I want to share with you is from 2005 to 2008, as I had scaled back, we actually grew the business 600%. So we went from, in the very beginning, it was 80 visits a week. The equivalent of it would be going from 80 visits a week to 480, which is um, very close to what we did, right? So yeah, just to give you an idea of how powerful it can be, just to remove yourself and have the comfort to replace yourself working in the business. So some big takeaways here. Number one is uh, you can control the boundaries on your schedule, and once you do it, once you commit to it, go in. Uh, don't put toe in the water, right? Don't put your toe in the water. Go in and be committed to it. So if you decide that you're going to treat 40 hours a week and you lay those hours out, fit all patients, all treatment time into those hours. That's big point number one. What normally gets in the way is we'll start scheduling patients over lunch, or we'll schedule a patient early in the morning, or late, tag somebody on at the end of the evening. And you're going to have some discipline and boundaries in the beginning. What you're going to see is that fairly quickly, your team and also patients in general, like everybody will start respecting you more for your time because you're respecting your time more, right? You need that space to think about how to grow your business, how to leave a bigger impact, how to build your team up, how to take a look at how your processes and systems are working. So be disciplined with your schedule, and don't violate the plan that you've laid out. Don't let those other nice to haves creep in. And I know that's tough. I know we want to help people. Um, we're all wired that way, but just avoid doing that at all costs. The greater that you avoid bending, the oddly, the greater impact you'll have. Very counterintuitive, but that's what I've seen work not only in my own personal situation, but also with other clinicians and practice owners as well. Number two is I mentioned grace before. Give yourself grace. Give yourself some permission to fall a few times, right? To stumble as you're working on your business. If the only thing that you know how to do is treat patients, and all of a sudden you have an open hour block, an open 4-hour block, and you're expecting to know exactly what to do, that's going to be rough. And I can tell you essentially what I did in the beginning is I started to focus on marketing, focus on driving new patients was the first thing. I started looking at our billing, like just auditing and following a few patients through, and found some errors about how we were leaving money on the table. I also got a lot more in depth with our metrics and how to look at our business. Um, I would so other helpful information in there that eventually fell into as well, stumbled upon over the years is look at the processes. So you may think that because you told the receptionist to say something, that he or she are automatically saying that. Same thing with your therapist or any other position. You have to look and check it, right? So when you replace yourself within the clinic, it doesn't mean your job is done and you get to cash in your chips and sit under the mango tree. That's not how it works. You have to, the right role as you become more and more of your time is devoted to executive functions, is that you're looking at what's going on. So it's sitting in on an evaluation every once in a while with your clinicians. It's auditing a chart, auditing a patient record and following a patient through and seeing how your processes are working and seeing if something dropped out. It's walking through the clinic and just observing what's going on. I've noticed, you know, one of the things that I look for is organization within the clinic, right? And it's not perfect by any means, but when I walk through, like, is the equipment put back where it needs to be put back? Is it clean? Is everything orderly, or is it disheveled? And you want to start paying attention to that. Look at your business and what's going on. The corrective function will pretty much scream out if you just start paying attention to what is going on via the metrics, via actually looking at your business. So that was big point number two. Give yourself some grace. So what I got into eventually is the Tuesdays would be primarily devoted to marketing and business growth. So that might be also marketing personnel on Tuesday afternoon from like 1 to 5. And then Fridays, I would be focused on metric review and planning. And that was a fairly loose schedule, but you're going to want to stick to something similar to that. So one was discipline schedule, two was grace. Number three is, which I already talked about a bit, but it's look, right? The most important function that you can do as a business owner is look at what is going on in the business. And I'm going to give you an example. I had gone through a training with a gentleman named Guy. I want to say his last name was Parsons. Guy owned a custom fitting bike shop, and they were making, and I mean custom fitting, like super high end road racing bikes. This is they're basically measuring, with micrometers and small degrees. And Guy is a business development genius, and he created something called the value stream. And what he did is he laid out, like, what do we have to do to produce one of these, $3,000 to $10,000 bicycles? What does this look like? And the one example that he gave was he basically broke the business down, the creation of the bike, the value stream, into 5 or 6, maybe 7 key steps. And one of those steps was what they would do is, they would take measurements of the rider, and then every angle on the bike was different. So let's just call it the crossbar angle, right? So where the crossbar meets the seat post, by the way, I'm not a custom bike guy, but you understand what I'm trying to say, where the bars on the bike connect, the bike frame connect. That it could be 37.7 degrees, it could be 35.2 degrees, it could be 32.9 degrees, and they had basically infinite variations for every one of these angles on the bike. And what they learned to do is basically go in, it was either 5 or 10 degree increments. So what was infinite number of options, they got it down to, I think it was maybe 5 different options, right? 5 different degrees for this. And it's kind of like, when you and I go to buy jeans and you're 34, 32, right? Like they're not custom fit jeans, but they're pretty close, right? Like they tend to fit, or whatever your size is. So what he did is he went through and I forget the exact numbers, but they were basically, I believe, breaking even on the production of the bike when he took the company over. And once they implemented this system, once he looked at the business, once he simplified it and got it very smooth, got the processes in place, and then made sure the team was implementing the processes that they agreed on and created, they ended up having tremendous margin, 20, 30, 40% margin. And then I think he was eventually bought by Trek, if I remember correctly, the story. But anyhow, the whole process of revolutionizing that business came from him going through and looking at every step, every process when he took over the business. You want to have that same exact approach that Guy took in the bike building business, custom road racing business in your PT practice. So look, when a patient calls in to your office, what is the receptionist saying? How does she talk to the patient on the phone? Is there something there that, uh, you know, is there something there that the receptionist is doing very well? And maybe you have four other receptionists that you want them copying what Jill is doing or whoever your front desk person is. Or is there room for improvement, right? Then once they come in, what does the intake process look like? What does the insurance authorization process look like? The financial plan and presentation look like? What does it look like when the physical therapist, the chiropractor, the podiatrist, the functional medicine doctor, whoever the clinician is, when they're presenting, the occupational therapist, when they're presenting the plan of care to the patient and they're doing the eval on that first visit, what does that look like? What does the treatment progression look like? And the treatment execution look like with any assistance that you may have and the clinicians? What does it look like when the patient graduates? What does their communication look like from your marketing team to reactivate them in the future? Is there a graduation day? What are they doing there? You constantly want to be looking at your business, what is going on? And you can do it physically and you can do it through metrics. I recommend, and this is what I see from the best business owners, is they do both, right? You can get a snapshot through auditing of how well your processes are working. Obviously, you can't listen to every new patient calling your practice, right? You can't watch every eval. That would be impossible to do as you grow and scale. And that isn't scalable, not the best use of your time. But you can go into one eval a month, right? And keep an eye on it. The other thing that you can do as you scale is you can look at your key metrics. In the beginning, for most of us, we're tracking essentially new patients or new plans of care, total number of visits, income or revenue, and attendance rate or utilization rate, right? As we go along, each one of those tends to expand. So as we work ourselves out of treating all the time and more to working on the business, what that allows us to do is go deeper with our metrics. And we have sub metrics, that drive the main metrics, et cetera. So big takeaways: number one is discipline schedule. Takeaway number two is give yourself some grace. And number three is make sure you're looking at your business using both auditing that we talked about and metrics as well. Hope you very much enjoyed this story from inside the trenches of private practice PT. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening. Remember to visit getbreakthrough.com to access our free resource library designed specifically for private practice growth. While you're there, make sure you register for a complimentary growth assessment to learn about potential opportunities for growth in your local market. Again, thank you for tuning into the Grow Your Practice podcast and supporting our mission to help people in pain get back to normal naturally.